Hello and welcome to People and Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up, nervous steel. After a deal to sell some of Britain's steelworks was announced, we'll be asking what sort of future the industry has in Europe. Hard talk on hard currency. Does the banknote have a place in a world of contactless payments? And nautical trends, the Spanish company that's turning rubbish, fish from the seas, into high-end clothing. First up, though, does Europe's steel industry have a future? Well, European producers have long complained of being undercut by state-subsidised imports from China. Thousands of jobs have been lost in the industry in recent months. In Britain, most of the plants owned by Tata Steel look set to be saved after a deal was done to sell them to the investment firm Greybull Capital. But the country's biggest steelworks in Wales isn't part of that agreement. It's facing an uncertain future, as Lucy Fielder now reports from Port Talbot.
An industry that built an empire. But the future of British steel is under threat. Port Talbot. Most customers in this cafe work at the plant, just like Tracy's husband. If the furnaces here are allowed to go cold, the local economy will too.
How can we bounce back? There's nothing else in the area for us. The community totally relies on the steelworks for income, just for everything.
National Radio has come to Tracy's cafe to debate the fate of local families.
We've been making steel on this site for over 100 years. Those blast furnaces, particularly the new one, is the most efficient in Europe. I think it would be very sad to let that go.
When he's not working at the plant, Graham Rowland trains for marathons. He's one of 4 generations of Rowlands who have manned the furnaces.
This is a photo of my father. He was a steel worker. It doesn't bear thinking about, not to see smoke coming from the site and steam and whatever, because I've seen it all my life. There's a great workforce there with a great passion, and we'll fight till the bitter end.
This local Member of Parliament blames the Conservative government for doing too little, too late.
It's good to see that they're finally waking up to what needs to be done. It means some injection of financial assistance. It means assistance with things like the pension fund, so that Tata Steel can keep operating, so we have the longest possible time to find a responsible buyer.
It's hard to see how the largest industrial site in the UK could survive without some government intervention.
For more on this, let's turn to Jason Kaplan, who's a steel industry expert from the research firm IHS in London. Jason, thanks for joining us. This deal in Britain, the sale of the Tata Steel steelworks, is this good news for the British steel industry?
Oh yes, very much so. I think anything that keeps jobs and keeps steel production in the UK is a positive thing for the local communities and perhaps for the wider economy.
And more broadly, how do you see it panning out in the coming years? Will they be able to maintain those plants that they've brought?
Well, I think up until now we haven't had the full details of what the deal entails. Greybull in the past have taken other businesses over and have turned them around. I mean, inevitably, I think there will be some need for job cuts, some cost cutting and some help from the government. But assuming all that happens, we should see production going along, but perhaps not growing, maybe maintaining where it is at the moment.
So that's the situation in Britain. From a broader European context, are we likely to see similar sales like this in other parts of Europe as well?
I think either sales or consolidation. I think that's a big fear that's going on, certainly in Germany. Yesterday and the day before, we had quite a lot of turning out by the unions, perhaps worried by the ability for ThyssenKrupp and Tata Steel or another major player to join and consolidate their assets.
Can European steel producers really compete at this stage? Should some countries just give up on the ideal of making steel?
No, I think on a purely economic basis, perhaps that would be the argument, that we can't make it as cheaply as other countries which are closer to the national resources, based in Australia or Brazil. But on an emotional level, it's very difficult to lose your steelworks. So no, I don't think actually losing your steel industry is the way forward. Perhaps understanding of where your area, where you should focus is more interesting than losing the whole industry.
And is there an ability for those producers in Europe to find a niche, to find something that they can produce well and produce competitively?
I think very much so. I think in over the last 5 years, really since Tata have taken over the ex-Chorus works, they have been focusing, making a niche in the automotive steel. And really the UK makes some of the best automotive steels, some of these advanced high-strength steels, we call them. So as long as they focus on the high value-add products, it's very easy to compete against the commoditized materials coming from China and elsewhere in the world.
You mentioned state support before. Is that what steel producers need in Europe?
Again, as an economist, it's very difficult to argue for nationalisation and state support. We've tried it in the past, and in fact there are plants in Europe which are being supported by the state. And really it's very difficult to see how that's benefiting the industry. So while state support for an immediate benefit, helping a company over a hump or poor period is justifiable. In the long run, it doesn't make much sense economically. But on an emotional level, when people's jobs are on the line and perhaps communities are going to suffer greatly because of it, then there is an argument for the state stepping in.
Now, there's a lot of finger pointing towards China in this debate. We've seen the Chinese government announce a cut in steel production. Is that likely to have much of an effect on the industry in this part of the world?
It certainly will have some benefit. But what we believe is that there is so much capacity in China that is actually not being used. So even taking that out, we're not going to see steel demand and supply coming back into balance, and therefore prices rising. We don't think that the cuts which they propose, even if they were to happen, and the Chinese government in the past has said that they will make these cuts, even if they were to happen, it won't have a significant effect on European or UK steel.
And what does all of this mean for the price of steel? I mean, we've seen it slump by some 40%. Is it likely to rebound by much?
We're forecasting not. I mean, IHS, or my group at IHS, focus on price development, and we have an almost minimal escalation, which is really based on what's going to be happening to the raw materials, not on the steel production side.
OK, Jason Kaplan from IHS, thank you for joining us from London.
Thank you.
Now, next up, is it the end of cash as we know it? A conference in Paris has been discussing hard currency and the competition it faces from credit cards, mobile phone payments and other new technology. But it might be too soon to ring a death knell for the banknote, as Thomas Waterhouse now reports.
They've jingled around in our pockets and been stuffed in our purses for centuries. But with the rise today of new forms of payment, are we now seeing the demise of coins and banknotes? The president of the European Central Bank certainly doesn't seem to think so. Just 2 months ago, he was singing the praises of cash as he launched a new €20 note.
Euro banknotes touch the lives of every one of us. As such, they bring us closer together.
A record €1 trillion worth of banknotes were spat out of ATMs across Europe last year, with cash used for 65% of transactions across the bloc. But that's not the case of every European country. Nordic states have long been flying the flag for other payment methods. Here in Sweden, ironically the birthplace of the modern banknote, technology like this palm reader has helped see cash payments fall to just 27% of all transactions. But as banks, retailers and financial institutions gathered in Paris for a 2-day conference to discuss the future of cash, most agreed that hard currency is here to stay.
Many of these products claim to be the silver bullet that would eliminate cash. May they rest in peace. I fundamentally believe that one of the main reasons why most of these schemes failed is because they would not actually provide access to cash.
Some tech giants, though, disagree. Facebook, for example, has recently developed a payment method in its messenger service that it plans to roll out soon. But while its crown might well be slipping, for the immediate future at least, it looks like cash is still very much king.
To Spain next for some high fashion from the ocean floor. A Spanish company has joined forces with fishermen in the Alicante region to collect the rubbish from the Mediterranean, which it then turns into clothes. The designs make use of some of the 6 million tonnes of trash that end up in the Med every year. But the clothes do come at a cost, as our team in Spain, Sarah Morris and Valerie Le Bon, found out.
Every time they return to port, it's the same ritual for these fishermen near Alicante. As well as fish, they sort through rubbish.
It depends on the days, but normally we get a bag like this one and fill it.
At high sea, when the nets are pulled up, the fishermen face a sorry sight. The fish is mixed with garbage. Every year, more than 6 million tonnes of trash ends up in the ocean. For the last 8 months, more than 200 boats have joined an initiative run by EcoAlf.
I do it for myself. I work on the sea, and this way I'm cleaning up the sea. It's the best thing for everyone.
Every week, the collected rubbish is sorted at this factory and turned into cloth and other materials before ending up at this shop in Madrid. The Spanish foundation EcoAlf runs a network across the country to make products from trash, like these flip-flops.
Es un proyecto 100% nacional.
This project is 100% national. This black part is made from the powder from tires that is compacted using just heat and pressure.
These clothes were made from innovative ecological methods, which is reflected in the price. The jacket Carol's wearing costs €175.
As soon as you start working outside the usual retail channels, your costs go up. Our highest cost, of course, is the research and development. Developing a new material can take us up to a year to do all the testing.
The brand's clients are willing to spend a little more to protect the planet. EcoAlf is hoping it will gradually be able to expand the project to the rest of the Mediterranean.
That's all for this People in Profit. If you have any comments on the stories that we've been covering, get in touch via our Facebook page, or you can tweet me at @NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.